A historic Toronto Raptors win as they dust the Orlando Magic. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I always get amazed when I'm in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
What a game, y'all. What a game. 139-87. It was only close for like 5 minutes of this game, and then it was over, and Scottie Barnes and Sandro Mamukelashvili and basically 8 other Raptors scored in double digits. It was an all-around effort that involved defense, that involved playmaking, that involved passing at the highest level for the Toronto Raptors in an all-important game as they win the tiebreaker over the Orlando Magic and keep into the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. Let's break it down. Let's talk about why that happened. Scottie Barnes was a man on a mission tonight without Brandon Ingram and without Emmanuel Quickley. He poured in 23 points and added 15 assists. Now, part of that was just his overall aggression in this game, looking to score and apply pressure on the Magic defense. And so Paolo Banchero as his number one assignment here. He attacks him, gets downhill, draws the help, and now there are a lot of playmaking opportunities for one of the best passers in the league, right? He can either, look at RJ Barrett here cutting. Jamal Shed is here above the break to make a strong side cut. He can pass it out to Jakob, and they can reset and run a dribble handoff. If the weak side defender or strong side defender helps out, then Jacoby Walter is there. But we're going to go with option number one. Good wraparound pass to RJ, who settles for the floater. This time in a pick and roll setting. And look, teams are going to go under on pick and rolls when it comes to Scottie either way, but his relentlessness at getting downhill is what's key to counteracting that. So boom, he gets downhill, gets into the paint, and again finds a wide open cutting RJ Barrett, also seals off his defender and finishes. So 77 action here for the Toronto Raptors, where it's Jakob and Grady Dick as the screen setters. And so boom, little double drag situation. Actually, it's this time they disguise it where Jakob is the guy rolling to the basket and have Grady be the guy popping out. A little bit different than their usual, but nonetheless, that's exactly what happens. Pick and roll situation. And look at the amount of options that he has at his disposal when it comes to playmaking, right? Number one option, he can find this roller right here. 2, if Jalen Suggs is to tag Jakob Poeltl, then boom, there's a wide open pass to Jacoby Walter. Grady Dick also wide open above the break. Just a lot of playmaking opportunities for, again, one of the best passers in the league, and boom, Jakob with the finish. And of course, defense to offense is another thing that Scottie Barnes is able to do for this Toronto Raptors team. He can do it in a multitude of ways. He can bring the ball up, and he can be the guy trying to get out an early seal. And that's exactly what he's doing here against Jalen Suggs, the smaller defender. He's hunting him out. That's what Pascal Siakam was so elite at when he was with the Toronto Raptors, still is. Scottie does that to a similar level. So boom, early seal, the help comes. He's going to help off A.J. Lawson, creates a wide open corner 3 for him. Scotty's defense on Paolo Banchero was elite tonight. Paolo was 3 of 14, but he really struggled. He had 5 turnovers as well. The Magic basically turned the ball over a lot, but a lot of ill-advised pass for them, and boom, once again, now Scottie Barnes is the initiator in transition, and that's another way for him to just dominate in transition for this team. That capped off, folks, a 31-0 run for the Toronto Raptors. That is the most recorded in the play-by-play era. They officially have the record of going 31-0 against an NBA team. The Orlando Magic at that point, it was, I believe, 14-20 in favor of the Orlando Magic, and they went on a 31-0 run. A lot of that was because of Scottie, because of Sandro Mamukelashvili, who we'll get to in a second. But boy, was that a great game. And from there on, the Raptors had fun. Scottie found a lot of comfort in attacking this Paolo Banchero matchup. So as you see here, and I want to note the aggression in scoring, right? It's not just looking to pass, but also looking to get downhill to be able to open up your passing windows even more. And so Scottie, breakdown dribble, gets into the teeth of the defense. He loves to get to these mid-range fadeaways, but the defense is now sagged in and keyed in on him. Finds Elijah Martin, who knocks down the 3. And on the other side, Scottie Barnes is an all defense level player. Scottie Barnes can win Defensive Player of the Year at some point in his career. Did an excellent job of guarding Paolo Banchero with his length, forcing him into tough passes like this. More guarding Paolo, so here forces him middle, and just elite contest here. Like, this is insane verticality, elite verticality, and of course the rebound from Jakob to close out the possession. A lot of that, again, the playmaking, the defense, everything that Scottie Barnes does as an initiator has to do with how aggressive he is as a scorer. He knocked down 2 pull-up threes early in this game, but it was also moments like this where, against a defender that he knows he can attack and body up, he just uses one move, gets downhill, and finishes. The more relentless he is at doing that, the better his playmaking will be. And so as you see here, again, Scottie Barnes attacks the closeout, gets into a spot, and then just throws down the dunk. Again, more pressure, more tenacity, more aggression. That's exactly what he has to do always. And it's not just on ball that he can do that. This is what makes him so versatile. Scottie now, as the roller, they feed him, and he dunks on Paolo Banchero. And folks, that is why Scottie Barnes is the best player on this Toronto Raptors team. Because he can have games like that where he completely takes the game over, dominates, and really truly shapes the game to how he wants the game to be played. A part of why the Raptors were able to force turnovers, get out and running, play transition. I mentioned this on the NBA Daily, but the Raptors had 22 fast break points in the first quarter. They average 18 fast break points a game. It was that type of performance from the Orlando Magic, who were basically coughing the ball up at will. The Magic had 27 turnovers in this game. The Raptors finished with 39 fast break points. It was an incredible onslaught when it comes to how poor of a defensive effort it was from the Orlando Magic, how bad they took care of the ball. A lot of the post-game quotes from the Magic is how unprepared they were for such an important game in the season. And, who knows what happens with that team. But the Raptors, on the other side of this, really were able to lay out the foundation for what was an incredible game from them. Of course, the conversation will be about Scottie Barnes, point guard, but I think the better, more fascinating conversation is not about like what Scottie is as a point guard, but what this team is when they play fast. And naturally, Scottie Barnes allows this team to play fast. And if you haven't read Joe Wolfon's piece on Raptors Republic, he talked about how the Raptors are sort of like square peg, round hole with Brandon Ingram right now in the way that they are trying to force him to play faster. But his style of play doesn't necessarily mesh with a team that wants to play fast. Brandon Ingram likes to play slow. The Raptors, for the most part, want to play fast. That being said, I think there is a world in which they can eventually get to a healthy balance and a nice equilibrium where in moments where they need to slow down, they can slow down. And for the majority of the game, they can pressure the ball, get out and running, and play Scottie Barnes type basketball. You saw Scottie Barnes type basketball tonight for the Toronto Raptors. This was a Scottie Barnes type game in terms of how dominant they were defensively, forcing turnovers and getting out and running. And that helped everybody on this team feast. The Raptors had 41 assists in this game. Scottie Barnes, by the way, registered a career high 15 assists in this one. The Raptors had 41 assists on 54 made shots. Now, admittedly, a lot of that is, garbage time, transition play, whatever have you. But when the Raptors have this lead initiator who is so good at making fast decisions, and as you saw in some of those plays that I just broke down, some of the assists that Scottie had, a lot of those decisions that he was making was in the half court, was operating in the pick and roll where he was like, okay, I can see the roller, I can see the weak side help, I can give it off to RJ Barrett, I can do a bunch of things with the ball, and it's because I'm reading the floor at a high level. That is what Scottie Barnes does for this Toronto Raptors team. In terms of him being the lead initiator, I also don't think it's any surprise that the Raptors, played A.J. Lawson in this game. Actual rotation minutes, by the way, not just garbage time. A.J. Lawson played 20 minutes in this one. He had 14 points. He had 4 threes in this game. Elijah Martin also played actual rotation minutes in this game. He had 12. He played about 12 and a half minutes, had 8 points, knocked down a 3. Sandro Mamukelashvili was awesome in this game. He had 19 points, knocked down 2 threes. He's also elite at leaking out in transition, and so he's a natural partner for Scottie Barnes to find in those transition opportunities. Same thing for Jamal Shed, who can find those leak out opportunities. So these are guys who pair well with a guy who likes to play fast. And you see the vision of Scottie Barnes barreling his way to the basket, being aggressive as a scorer, and then finding shooters, finding cutters, finding rollers to the basket. That's Raptors basketball, folks. But that being said, the Raptors have these two very useful players in Emmanuel Quickley and Brandon Ingram, who I think relative to the rest of the team like to play slower. This is not just a BI thing. IQ also likes to play slower. And so, as funny as it sounds for a guy named Quickly, but that's neither here nor there. It's just how they are able to find this healthy medium, how they're able to find this healthy equilibrium that allows Scottie Barnes to shine a little bit more on the ball as a creator, because his playmaking and passing is so magnificent on this team. And I think for the most part, all season, the Raptors have found ways to weaponize Scottie's passing in the middle of the floor, using him as a screener, him getting into the middle of the defense, especially when they saw so much zone coverage in December and in January. And then through that aspect, 4-on-3 situations, Scottie once again able to make reads. And when Scottie is asked to run bench lineups, he, of course, also is working as the lead initiator. So we have seen some of that, but we are just seeing more of it now because there is no Brandon Ingram, because there is no Emmanuel Quickley. That doesn't mean, even Darko Rajakovic before the game was asked, like, hey, is there anything to the fact that Scottie Barnes has had four straight games with 10+ assists and the offense has looked awesome? And he said, small sample size. Which is fair. I think that is entirely fair. And I honestly do think a lot of this has to do with scoring. Like, as much as Scottie is an elite playmaker, he is elite to the degree at which he will be able to score the ball. And tonight, especially early on, he was able to score the ball very, very well. Whether it was pressuring the defense, whether it was shooting the ball, he had 2 pull-up threes in the first quarter of this game. That changes the reaction of the defense to what you're looking for. So Scottie, it really just depends on his scoring and how much he's able to progress moving forward as a scorer. That will give him more lead initiator reps and opportunities. But ultimately, the offenses look great. The Raptors had one of their best half-court offenses of the year this game. And, part of that, again, is an embarrassing performance from the Orlando Magic, who genuinely look destitute out there. This looks like a team that has given up on themselves. And from the post-game comments, it seems like they have given up on themselves. But regardless, Scottie Barnes, All-Star, All-NBA, Defensive Player of the Year. This was a masterclass performance from him. And this is ultimately great for them for the final 10 games of the season. They're playing some interesting competition in the Boston Celtics, 2 times the Miami Heat. They played the Knicks one more time. Let's test and see how this thing looks against that competition. You're going to be playing playoff teams here in a couple of weeks. You have to be at your best. And games like tonight show you what the Raptors can be at their best. Also worth noting, RJ Barrett had 24 points. A lot of those points you saw in that Scottie Barnes highlight reel that I just broke down because of how he's able to work off of what Scottie provides for this offense. He's such a great cutter. He's just very intuitive with the ball. He can get downhill. And so naturally, RJ is a very good pairing with Scottie Barnes. RJ also loves to play fast. He's in the top 10 in fast break points. So his ability to play fast really gels well with what Scottie Barnes is able to do on that end of the floor. Same thing with Mamu, who completely flipped this game. Mamu was plus 47 in 21 minutes of action. That is the 3rd best single game plus minus in Raptors franchise history, behind Pascal Siakam and Gary Trent Jr., who both did it in a game in 2021 against the Warriors. That's how good of a game this was, y'all. Sandro was exceptional at, of course, knocking threes down. He knocked down 2 threes, but just the transition play, I thought he was very good defensively in this one too. And Darko in postgame mentioned that defense kind of turns into offense for Mamu in a lot of ways. When he's able to get stops, when he's able to do the right things defensively, he can play a little bit more offensively. But this was a game where everybody was able to eat. I could go up and down the roster and basically talk about every single player. I really enjoyed what the 905 guys brought in, and I'm kind of biased in that regard because I watched the 905 guys a lot. But seeing AJ Lawson and Elijah Martin kind of slide into exactly what's asked of them, as 3-point shooters, as guy off the ball, as pressuring the ball, running out in transition, like they just fit in so well again with the Raptors wanting to play fast. And the 905, the one thing that they do really well is play fast. Speaking of the 905, they play on Tuesday at the same time as the Raptors, unfortunately, but they do play their first round playoff series. And it's not a series, it's single elimination. So if they win on Tuesday, they move on to the second round. And it's ironically against the Pistons G League affiliate, the Motor City Cruise. But I'm very excited for that game. Very excited to see, hopefully, AJ Lawson and Elijah Martin play in that game. I imagine they will. I would be shocked if the Raptors decided to call those guys up for the Pistons game. I don't know. I just feel like priority. I don't know. I actually don't know how that works. Let me know in the comments what you guys would prefer. But personally, and again, biased here, but I think it would make sense to make sure that those guys are playing for the G League. I think Trace Jackson Davis should play for the G League team. I think Markelle Fultz should play for the G League team. Mobo, Martin, Lawson, let those guys play and finish out the season with their team in the 905. And hopefully you get Battle back, you get Quickly back, you get Ingram back, and you're able to cook a little bit. Hopefully Colin Murray-Boyles is also back in this one. They definitely missed him. Not necessarily in this game, though, because the Raptors destroyed the Orlando Magic. It was one of their best wins in franchise history. That's how awesome of a game this was, and a testament to them for doing it in a game that mattered the most. It was probably their most important game of the season at this juncture, and they delivered in a massive way. A lot of that has to do with the guy himself, Scottie Barnes. Folks, as always, make sure to like, to comment, to subscribe to Raptors Republic. We are only 2 weeks away from the playoffs, y'all. And the playoffs, we're going to be cooking up some stuff. Hopefully, and the hope is, I really hope the Raptors Republic gods are listening to me right now. The hope is for the whole crew to be able to travel for these playoffs and to be able to attend these playoffs. So whether it's Cleveland or New York or Boston or wherever, or a play-in game, I don't know, we will be covering it and covering it in depth. So we appreciate you guys tapping into Raptors Republic. As always, see you guys later. Peace out.